गाँव में अनेक वृद्ध वृद्धा अच्छा असहाय शिशु अच्छा जी कि भिन्नक्षम व्यक्ति अच्छा रोगाक्रांत व्यक्ति जापर तेणु आम सहित से सुरक्षित स्थान को नहीं जाइलु
तापर जाकि स्कूल समस्ते आसला पूर्व खाइबार व्यवस्था कर प्राय मैक्सिमम 200 जनकर खाइबार व्यवस्था कर खाई सारा समस्ते युव समाज और समस्त आम गाँव लोक गोटे स्कूल बिल्डिंग छात भितर रही छात भितर रही बात्या कौन ऑब्जर्व कलु बात्या धीरे धीरे 7टा आरंभ है आरंभ हो 11टा भितर बहुत स्पीड्रे बन्या स्पीड्रे पवन है पवन हो सारी धीरे धीरे 3टा अधे 4टारे थमिला थमी सारा पर आम जिते देखिलु युव समाज पिला माने समस्ते बाहरी गाँ गाँ बुलिलु गाँ सारा बुलिलु साई साई बुलिला पर देखिले कार चाल छपर भांगी जाइछि रोड खुंट उपरे गछ पड़ जाइछि रोड उपरे गछ पड़ जाइछि से देखिकी आसिकी आम स्कूल रे पहुँचलु पहुँची सारा पर स्कूल जी गाँ लोक थे कहलु जे समस्ते एवं सुरक्षित जातु
से सब सुरक्षित स्थान जो लोक मैंने घर को गले जो बाटे मानते रास्ता गछ गुड़ाक पड़ जाए उपड़ी पड़ जाए पत्र सब चारिड़े हो गाँ गुड़ाक अपरिष्कार देखा जाऊँगी एसबू युवक युवती संघर आम मैंने सब गलु सफा कराला
घरे डैमेज असेसमेंट कराला चाइल्ड फंड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन मालकानगिरी अच्छी से आसिक डैमेज असेसमेंट कले डैमेज असेसमेंट करके युव मानक युव समाज मानक किसी ट्रेनिंग फास्ट एड ट्रेनिंग डिजास्टर रिस्क रिडक्शन ट्रेनिंग देते फास्ट एड किट दिखाई आउ डिजास्टर रु मेगाफोन जो सतर्क बाणी देवाई मेगाफोन दिखाई एवं आमे एवं मालकानगिरी जिलार समस्ते प्रस्तुत अच्छु जे एवं डिजास्टर जदि बात्या आसिले आमे ताकु सम्मुखीन करि पारिबु
परिशेष ओडिशार मालकानगिरी जिलार युवती संघ युवक युवती संघ यूथ क्लब तरफ किसी बार्ता देवाक आपण चाहूँ
हुडुडर प्रथम अनुभूति आमर थिला सेही अनुभूति आम जो विपर्ययर विपद को ह्रास कर तेणुक समग्र पृथ्वीर युव समाज को युव गोष्ठी को मु अनुरोध कर विनीत अनुरोध कर संकल्प नियंतु एवं तत्परता सहित जो विपर्य को सामना कर विपद को ह्रास करूँ धन्यवाद।
So they were basically sharing their experience of their involvement in the cyclone Hudud. So they both of them belong to different youth clubs in Malkangiri district. So they started saying that they disseminated the early warning. After the early warning dissemination, most of the village area, village houses are kacha houses. So they have evacuated all the people, prioritizing the vulnerable groups to a school building, which is the only concrete building available. And there they also organized food because most of them did not have their dinner and they had to leave the place. And once the cyclone ended up at around 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, they came out of that. They did a quick damage assessment and they saw that there were a lot of trees and houses were fallen because of the wind. They tried to clear it out and then they realized there is a need for DRR training for youth clubs. So they have actually worked with an organization called Child Fund to get DRR training, first aid training, as well as some first aid kits as well as the community utensils. So that they are saying that with this kind of training and equipment support, we are now prepared to face any disaster, and we request the youth of this world and this nation to be prepared to reduce the risk of a disaster. That's what the message.
रास्ता घाट असुविधा स्वास्थ्य असुविधा आम घर एमती कि ना जे कौन असुविधा नुह सब असुविधा कौन गोटे भी सुविधा ना तथापि कहीं प्रति गुरुत्व देना।
She has come from her village is Satamaya, which is a showcase of climate change effect. 6 of the 7 villages are already inside the Bay of Bengal, and there is no road. Around 9 kilometers they have to walk, and there is no school, no teacher now, because nobody wants to go there and stay there, and there is barely no health services. After filing, after 22 days, relief reached their village. So in that kind of situation and in other such kind of places, how we are not taking it as a priority?
నా పేరు ఎన్ కీర్తి. నేను నెల్లూరు జిల్లా వాకాడ్ మండలం పూడ్రాయిదురు గ్రామంలోని బాలల సంరక్షణ కమిటీ నుంచి వచ్చాను. మా గ్రామంలో గత 10 సంవత్సరాల క్రిందట కనీసం ప్రైమరీ స్కూల్ కూడా లేదు. ఈ మధ్య కాలంలో 5 సంవత్సరాల క్రిందట ప్రైమరీ స్కూల్ని నిర్మించడం అనేది జరిగింది. దానికి ముందు చదువుకున్న వాళ్ళు ఎవరూ లేరు. అప్పుడు ప్రైమరీ స్కూల్ని పెట్టిన తర్వాత 5వ తరగతి వరకు చదువుకుంటున్నారు. కానీ 5వ తరగతి తర్వాత చదువుకోవడానికి హై స్కూల్కి వెళ్ళాలంటే కనీసం 15 కిలోమీటర్లు పిల్లలు నడిచి వెళ్ళాలి. ఎలా అంటే పుల్కాట్ సర్స్ మీదుగా, అంటే శ్రీహరికోట ఉంది కదండి, షార్ ఉండే దగ్గర, అక్కడ ఒకవైపు మా గ్రామానికి ఒకవైపు బంగాళాఖాతం ఉంటుంది, ఇంకోవైపు యాపంజేరు కాలువ ఉంటుంది, ఇంకోవైపు బహింగ్ కెనాల్ ఉంటుంది. 3 వైపులా నీళ్ళే, మధ్యలో గ్రామం ఉంటుంది. తుఫాన్లు వచ్చినా, వరదలు వచ్చినా, సునామీ వచ్చినా చాలా ఎఫెక్టివ్గా ఎంతో నష్టాన్ని మేము చూస్తూ ఉంటాం. 1984 సంవత్సరంలో వచ్చిన తుఫాన్లో కూడా మా గ్రామం అంతా మునిగిపోయి మనుషులు కూడా పైకి రాలేని స్థితిలో ఉన్నారు. అప్పుడు మా ఊర్లో కనీసం బ్రిక్స్తో కట్టిన ఇల్లు కూడా ఒకటి కూడా లేదు. అప్పుడు వేరే ఊరికి వెళ్ళిపోయేసి అక్కడ తలదాచుకొని ఒక 5 నెలల తర్వాత గ్రామంలోకి వచ్చి మళ్ళీ చిన్న చిన్న ఇల్లులు వేసుకొని అక్కడ జీవనం సాగించడం మొదలుపెట్టారు. ఆ తర్వాత చాలా సంవత్సరాలు అలాగే తుఫాన్లు వస్తూ ఉంటే ఆ ఇల్లులు పోను అలా మళ్ళీ కట్టుకొని ఇప్పటికీ అదే పరిస్థితిలో మా గ్రామం ఉంది. స్కూల్ పిల్లలు అప్పర్ ప్రైమరీ స్కూల్కి వెళ్ళాలంటే 15 కిలోమీటర్లు వెళ్ళాల్సిందే. దాంట్లో 5 కిలోమీటర్లు ప్రాపర్లీ ఉదయం సాయంత్రం నడవాల్సిందే. వాళ్ళు 10 కిలోమీటర్లు మాత్రమే బస్సు వెళ్తుంది. ఆ 10 కిలోమీటర్లు కూడా ఈ తుఫాను, కనీసం చిన్న వాన వచ్చినా కూడా, చిన్న వరద వచ్చినా, ఫ్లడ్ వచ్చినా, కొంచెం ఎక్కువ నీళ్ళు వచ్చినా సముద్రంలో బస్సు రావడం మానేస్తుంది. అప్పుడు వాళ్ళు 4-5 నెలలు స్కూల్కి పోకుండా వాళ్ళ స్టడీస్ని స్పాయిల్ చేసుకొని చదువుకోవడం మానేస్తున్నారు. ఈ విధమైన పరిస్థితిని మేము ఆపుకోవాలనేసి సేవ్ ద చిల్డ్రన్ డిఆర్ఆర్ ప్రాజెక్ట్ వారు చైతన్య జ్యోతి సంస్థ ద్వారా 6 నెలల ముందు నుంచి మా గ్రామంలో పనిచేస్తున్నారు. మా పక్క గ్రామంలో చిన్నతోట అనే గ్రామంలో 20 మంది డ్రాప్ అవుట్ పిల్లలు ఉంటే అది కూడా కేవలం ఆడపిల్లలు మాత్రమే. వాళ్ళందరినీ మళ్ళీ వాళ్ళకి కౌన్సిలింగ్ ఇచ్చి వాళ్ళందరినీ రీజాయిన్ చేయడానికి సార్ వాళ్ళు ఎంతో మాకు సహాయం చేశారు. అలాగే 15 కిలోమీటర్ల పిల్లలు వర్షం వచ్చినప్పుడు నడిచిపోలేకపోతున్నాం. నేను కూడా డ్రాప్ అవుట్ పిల్లల్లో ఒక దానినే. వర్షం వచ్చినప్పుడు అంటే అసలు బస్సు రాదు, స్కూల్ ఎలాంటి స్టడీస్ కూడా జరగట్లేదు. దయచేసి మా కోసం స్కూల్ ముందు దగ్గరలో ఉండేలా చేయాల్సిందిగా కోరుకుంటున్నాం. ధన్యవాదాలు.
I will be talking a little bit about the risks and vulnerabilities that urban, particularly slum-dwelling children face to weather-related disasters in Indian cities. तो बस्ती के जो बच्चे रहते हैं तो उनके बात करेंगे. क्लाइमेट रिलेटेड जो हम डिज़ास्टर्स के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं और नॉन क्लाइमेट भी, जैसे आप गांव में रहते हो ज़रूर भूकंप से आपको प्रॉब्लम होती होगी, लेकिन जो बस्ती के अंदर जो बच्चे रहते हैं उधर घर इतने पास बने होते हैं, उधर जब भूकंप आता है तो उसमें वो बहुत जल्दी फैल जाता है और ख़तरा भी बहुत ज़्यादा होते हैं उसमें. और ये चीज़ जो है ये अभी अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पे भी लोग इनको अभी जान रहे हैं और इसके बारे में कुछ करने के सोच रहे हैं. So it is now actually internationally acknowledged that the disproportionate risk of certain groups, particularly children, elderly, women, disabled people, etc. And IPCC के the 4th and the 5th assessment reports actually have very strongly talked about the vulnerability of urban informal settlements and particularly slums within that. और अभी the latest UN Habitat report pegs the slum population at 863 million, most of which is actually in Asian and African cities. इसमें जो होता है लोग शहर में क्यों आते हैं? उनको लगता है अच्छा रहने का जगह मिलेगा, पढ़ाई लिखाई का सुविधा होगा, लेकिन बहुत बार यही देखा जाते हैं कि बस्ती में जो बच्चे रहते हैं, जो दूर दूर से आते हैं, उनको ये सुविधा असल में नहीं मिलते हैं। So the vulnerabilities and risk compounded with the nexus of poverty, urban poverty and lack of adequate housing, education opportunities, etc. compound with these other threats that climate and non-climate disasters pose. Why are urban informal settlers so vulnerable to these risks? First and foremost, there is a lack of adequate, or let's say deterrence of public and private investments in service provisions, because most of them are considered either illegal or informal, almost always equals to illegal in most cities, and they are part outside of the planned vision of a city. The lack of economic assets also, for example, when you do not have credit facilities or lack of money, power, etc., then you also do not have adequate capacity to adapt, particularly when adapting in terms of going and selecting better housing options, because most slums are on risky land, or maybe even livelihood diversification. Also, concentrations of vulnerable communities and economic assets are exposed to a lot of hazards like flooding. Jesse, now we are seeing these almost every year, these mega floods happening in Indian cities. Can you imagine these images that, you know, my cousin sending me from Chennai of a whole bus being sinking and etc. Can you imagine what's happening inside a slum in a context like that? We had been working from Action for Children's Environments a lot in the most vulnerable slums in some cities, including in Bombay and Bhopal and Calcutta. And this is a UNICEF supported project, though not a DRR or a CCA project. We were working mainly from the perspective of creating safe, resilient communities in this context from a protection point of view. This is a slum called Rafinagar in Mumbai, in Emis Ward, and this really is the dumping ground of Mumbai in Govandi. And वो पीछे आपको जो दिख रहा है ना, वो dumping ground, it's huge. And so, and ये इस तरफ जो घरे हैं, the houses on this side are legalized because they are recognized. On the left side, the houses are illegal. They're informal, but they're the size of the slum on either side of this dividing road, and this is the only paved road in the slum because this is where the trucks come and dump in the dumping ground. No other street in the slum is paved. So we were doing a lot of different kind of children were actually doing situation analysis and collecting data, etc. But while we were waiting for the data, and we are also integrating a lot of this data in GIS, we started creating these GIS maps. So we started with ward level. This is in M East, M Ward, the southern, the most deprived wards of Mumbai. That we first did an analysis of where are these slums located, and we obviously found that they are located in sort of the lowest lying lands in these areas, in this slope where they are located, and also it's a regional catchment basin for water. Then we did a water flow analysis. And we also found that most of the regional water in this district actually flows through these slums. So they are not only low-lying, they are connected to these, you know, there's a catchment basin of water flow accumulation, etc. So the inherent vulnerability of the location itself, when we talk about keeping children safe, we can work on child abuse, we can work on, you know, child marriage, we can work on substance abuse, everything. But if their house doesn't exist, cease to exist after a major flood, or the entire base goes, then that's also something that really needs to be part of protection, child protection work. This is the close-up map of Rafinagar. वो सारे brown जो है, that is the dumping ground, and the slum is the tiny orange patch, and the dark blue lines are the channels of water flow, in the intense water flow, you know, the high flood lines, and it actually passes through the heart of the slum. children in these slums had done a mapping of safe and unsafe spaces, and there are many, many reasons, and this is the youngest children below 10 years. So as you will see, the dumping ground or the red spots over there are unsafe spaces for them, and most of the spaces that they talk about as safe spaces are inside the slum. And they are mosques, madrasas, public toilets, study centers, many such things. Interestingly, as children grow older, particularly middle childhood, 10 to 14, when exploration needs are very strong, the safe spaces start coming up in the dumping ground, because those are the privacy needs of seeking anonymity for secret activities that they're going further and further away from the home base. And this starts changing a little bit as they grow older in teenage years, where there's a lot of different forms of abuse that comes in, particularly for girls. And I'm not showing you the gender segregated maps for lack of time. When we imposed all these spaces that children had identified and the critical infrastructure to the flood-prone areas of the slum, you'll see that most of the critical infrastructure, even in a moderate rainfall situation, actually gets affected very, very badly. And every year we see the way rains are devastating our city. So you can imagine what's going to happen to these kind of living environments and to children's lives within. So when we talk about resilience building, we talk about capacity to minimize and absorb stress or destructive forces through resistance or adaptation. But resistance goes much more than just capacity. It has to also address many systemic issues. The point that you raised, that as the state and adults are duty bearers, and we do have a lot to offer. Of course, everything is premised. It's in our DNA, child participation, and children have to be empowered, but adults cannot be let off the hook. And one of the main reasons for that, a lot of the psychology literature shows, because resilience is also a concept in psychology, and it talks about that just assuming that ye bacche to resilient hai, wo kuch bhi seh lenge, that if you keep putting those children in the path of risk and threats, then eventually their resistance will wear off, and you are going to do more harm to them. That there is no choice but to reduce risks in children's lives and to increase protective factors, that we have to do that. Resilience building also in this whole Asian Cities Climate Change Resilience Network, the framework that has often been used to address resilience, works at the level of strengthening infrastructure and ecosystems within these slums that we are looking at, that there are critical infrastructure that needs to be protected. There are things like security of tenure which needs to be addressed. Building capacities of social agents, the wonderful work that children are doing, they're all social agents, but so are adults, so are NGOs, so are a lot of the community itself, that how do you empower them and build their capacity, and addressing the institutional factors that constrain effective response and also long-term planning. I'm putting up this very, very complex diagram. Don't even attempt to understand it. But the whole idea is that in child development literature, this whole idea of how a child develops is not the job of any one sector. It's the culmination of many sectors, many actors coming together, and the child also is not located in one space. It's not just the school, it's not just the home. It's that when a young child is in the home with the family, that's the core. But as the child grows older, the institutions, the spaces that they're exposed to also expand. And the actors who they come in contact with also expand. So there is an understanding from an ecological systems perspective of these layered, nested, complex urban systems that a child comes in contact with. And when we look at national laws and international laws, child rights, that is right at the periphery, underpinning this whole world. So from this perspective and the work that we had done in Asian cities, we had come up with some strategies for, and these are only discussing the long-term risk reduction strategies from a child rights perspective, and what are the co-benefits of direct as well as indirect strategies. Now, for example, let's take the case of nutrition. We know that in Indian slums, and there had been an equity study done by UNICEF which had shown that the bottom 2 percentile of the urban poor population in Indian cities are actually far more deprived of 3 things than the bottom 2 quartiles of the rural population, and these are namely shelter, sanitation and nutrition. So in the context of a slum, wherever we have studied, we have found that this to be a really big issue, and there are many connotations. So where children are already at risk of malnutrition and stunting and all that, and then you further expose them to risks without, let's say, setting up. So what could be a co-benefits of a policy like this? That if you already have programs that ensure children can withstand a crisis, and you set up these feeding programs, which irrespective of whether there is a threat or not, so that if there is a threat, that you are actually building resistance of that particular community and children in that community to withstand future shocks and stresses. So that's one of the resilience building mechanisms. Similarly, we identified it for many sectors, what could be done through urban planning, as I showed in the morning, that city master plans are notorious for ignoring informal settlements, understanding where they exist, what their issues are, and within that, if we have to talk about the most vulnerable children, there has to be mapping across the city of these hotspots of vulnerability and where the most vulnerable children actually reside. And those information needs to feed back into these processes of creating city development plans and city master plans, again, as part of this whole resilience mechanism, developing infrastructural and resilience of a city. Similarly, there are many things that we looked at from social and child development perspective, from public policy, education perspective, etc. And we also started looking at whose responsibility is it to deliver on these. Because without assigning responsibility, just talking about a policy does not work. So you need to know who are the stakeholders that you have to work with and who's responsible, who are the duty bearers for this particular right. And how do you then negotiate with them? I'm sorry. I'm not going to go into very many details of this. This is a published study, so whoever is interested, I can actually share the study in detail. And I think I'm not going to hold up this session anymore. Thank you.
I'm a professor in the National University of Educational Planning and Administration. And prior to that, I was working with the National Council of Educational Research and Training. So basically, my background is on education, policy making, planning, and administration. आप लोगों को सारे समझ में आती है और one thing I want to share with you all that in this forum we have brought school safety to the center stage and also children participation. There are two things. एक school safety के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, एक children participation. If you look at the Indian context, school क्यों है? स्कूल का पर्पस क्या है? स्कूल सोसाइटी का पार्ट है? किसका पार्ट है?
ऐसा जगह है जहाँ से बच्चों को सवारी का
यस ये एक है कि we want the all-round development of the children within the school. There are two things I want to discuss in the context of DRR and how to mainstream in education. That means school safety के अंदर इसको कैसे mainstream किया जाए. I think that sir was mentioning from Plan India. It's not that, because all these initiatives are either done by the international agency, civil society. What is the government? What are the policy available currently about the school safety? मैं 10 साल के पीछे का बात थोड़ा बताऊंगी। जब सुनामी आई थी, उस टाइम के जो एजुकेशन मिनिस्टर थे, ही हैड रिटन ए लेटर टू NCERT टू वर्क ऑन द स्कूल सेफ्टी। ज्ञान बहुत कम था। That means the area of school safety was narrowly perceived. But over these last 10 years, ये 10 साल में, we learned many things about DRR and school safety. But still then, our whole actions are very जो छोटे छोटे बीट में होते हैं। एक साइड में हम बोलते हैं there is a right to education, right to safety। जैसे एजुकेशन का राइट है, ऐसे सेफ्टी का राइट है। So what is the role of education system? सिस्टम कौन है? गवर्नमेंट। गवर्नमेंट क्या बनाता है? पॉलिसी। क्या हमारा पॉलिसी आज के डेट तक क्यों साइलेंट है? So अभी एक अपॉर्चुनिटी है। We are preparing the new education policy wherein we are trying to push the idea of school safety. But whose voices are entering in the education sector? People are working, those who are either working, they are civil society, international agency, or doing something. Who would bring? I have been telling how we need to mainstream this school safety in our Indian context in school education. स्कूल एजुकेशन के अंदर एक करिकुलम होता है। करिकुलम है, पता है? करिकुलम है, टेक्स्ट बुक है। स्कूल के अंदर कुछ प्रैक्टिसेस है। What you have shown certain practices. How we can do certain practice of school safety within the school. What about the knowledge? Who is generating this knowledge of school safety? And how much knowledge at what level we need to integrate in our curriculum. जब आप प्राइमरी स्कूल में हैं, आपको DRR, क्लाइमेट चेंज, इसका नॉलेज कितना जानना चाहिए? आप सेकेंडरी में हो, हायर सेकेंडरी में हो, क्या इसको अलग सब्जेक्ट करके वी हैव फेल्ड? अभी कैसे हम इंटीग्रेट करें मीनिंगफुली अक्रॉस द सब्जेक्ट्स without creating the curriculum load? This is a major challenge for us. And what I have been stressing with NDMA, NIDM and with UNICEF, everybody, what kind of curriculum we need on DRR? अभी तक clear नहीं है. We have developed the teacher training packages, we have developed the whole package on DRR in a very collaborative way, but there is no clarity to the education sector. अभी भी टाइम है, अभी न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी बन रहे हैं, इसको कैसे हम how we are going to integrate meaningfully, we need to work in a serious manner. So there are two things. Education sector people, there is no clarity how much knowledge, how much practices need to be integrated as part of the school curriculum and part of the school processes and part of the school culture in the Indian context. And who would work on this endeavor? और इसके लिए किसको तैयार करना है? खाली बच्चों को तैयार करना है ना? इट्स अ वेरी ग्रेट इनिशिएटिव, बट इट वोंट गिव अस ए बेटर पहचान. दैट्स व्हाई वी एम्फसाइज ऑन बिल्डिंग ए स्कूल कल्चर. एक लड़की अभी बोल रही थी, हमारा गेट टूटे हुए थे, हमारा दरवाजे टूटे हुए थे, हमने इसको ठीक करवाया. इट्स अ गुड इनिशिएटिव, बट व्हाट सुदेशना टोल्ड, whose responsibility? And one किसी का भी हो. आज सुबह, today morning when I was watching television, there are many children from this district. They were demanding clean toilet. उनको अच्छा टॉयलेट चाहिए. कौन देगा उनको? कैसे टॉयलेट? Somebody was telling they have put another hand pump for hand washing. So ये जो DRR का कॉन्सेप्ट है, क्लाइमेट चेंज का कॉन्सेप्ट है और एजुकेशन सेक्टर बीच में एक दीवार है. And I have been working for last 10 years bridge between this expert group and education group. But DRR knowledge is expanding. Last 10 years immense knowledge, but very slow flow of knowledge to education sector. So I'm bringing a very bigger issue in front of you, that how can we make it part of education policy, mainstream in the school curriculum, हमारा टेक्स्ट बुक में भी आए. How do we integrate in our teaching learning process the way somebody was telling decision making process. It's a part of the pedagogic approaches, participation of children, engagement. But for participation and engagement, क्या चाहिए आपको? आपको अच्छा ज्ञान चाहिए. आधे अधूरे ज्ञान में आप empowered नहीं हो to create that sort of rippling effects. So how do we empower our children with good knowledge, skill and competency unless and until we mainstream? ये हमारे स्कूल, हर स्कूल तक पहुंचेगा. हमारे देश में कितने स्कूल है? कितने स्कूल है? 1.65 मिलियन स्कूल है. कितने बच्चे स्कूल में पढ़ते हैं? 223 million children are studying in our school. कितने teachers हैं? 8.5 million teachers are there. Look at the human resource. If we are preparing them, creating that preparedness on disaster risk reduction, environmental protection, climate change, sustainable development, we would achieve our national development very soon. ये जो बीच का गैप को हम कैसे ब्रिज करें, कहाँ पे ये बात रखें? So one of the point I wanted to emphasize, and some of you are here, this World Congress on Disaster Management, when they are giving recommendation to the government, they should give a very strong recommendation on mainstreaming DRR in school education in rightful manner. When we recommend फिर प्रोग्राम ऑफ एक्शन हम हर स्कूल के लिए बनाएंगे. हमारे स्कूल में हर स्कूल अलग अलग है. अच्छे स्कूल है, बहुत ऐसे स्कूल है 2 कमरे में चलते हैं, किसी का छत है, किसी का नहीं है. बट व्हाट वी हैव द एम्पावरमेंट यू हैव प्रूव्ड, द पोटेंशियल विद इन द चिल्ड्रन, पोटेंशियल विद इन द कम्युनिटी, पोटेंशियल विद इन द टीचर्स एंड पेरेंट्स. How do you prepare? But एक सिस्टमेटिक वे में डेवलप होता है. अभी हम सिस्टमेटिक रास्ते में नहीं है. जितना भी है बहुत अच्छा है, but it's not going to develop education sector or resolve or give a preparedness on DRR in a rightful way. And we have done research on it. हमारा रिसर्च है, हमने कुछ ट्रेनिंग मटेरियल बनाए हैं. हर साल हमारे यूनिवर्सिटी में डिस्ट्रिक्ट एजुकेशन, सारे एजुकेशन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर आते हैं. और उसके लिए कौन एक्सपर्ट आते हैं? सारे DRR के एक्सपर्ट आते हैं. वो बोलते हैं जो उनको आता है. ये बोलते हैं हमको ये ज्ञान नहीं चाहिए, हमको बताओ, हम स्कूल के अंदर टीचर है, हमको क्या करना है, आप हमको टेक्निकल नॉलेज मत दो. There is a lot of gap between DRR and this thing. We have helped also Sri Lanka to develop the teacher education curriculum integrating DRR. India is totally silent. जब तक हम टीचिंग कम्युनिटी को भी तैयार नहीं करेंगे, ये इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज नहीं होगा. स्कूल में हर कोई इसको प्रैक्टिस करना है. जब हम स्कूल के बाद चिल्ड्रन पार्टिसिपेशन, चिल्ड्रंस एंगेजमेंट बोलते हैं, देन वी नीड टू क्रिएट ए कल्चर, इथोस विद इन द स्कूल. एक स्कूल का प्रैक्टिस हो जो सोसाइटी तक रिपलिंग इफेक्ट रहे. आई विल स्टॉप इट हियर. I had prepared from a very thinking that it would be a very higher level of discussion on policy integration, but I'm happy to listen from the children and being part of the policy making. 1 मिनट तो मुझे मजबूर कर दिया आप लोगों ने सोचने के लिए कि क्या हमारा पॉलिसी में गलतियां है या इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में है, कहाँ पे है। ये बात आपके वॉइसेस जो आपने रेज किए हैं, I would definitely reach, communicate in the current policy making process, and individually and institutionally I try how this concept can be mainstream. So pushing the idea at the curriculum at different level, teacher training program, creating culture and ethos. But I do highly appreciate the initiative like Ram, Sir, people working in Bihar, Gujarat. These are the initiative and mirror in front of us that children are the change agent. Empower them, engage them in right perspective, provide that conducive environment within the school. स्कूल को हम नहीं भूलना चाहिए। हर स्कूल के अंदर एक माहौल क्रिएट करेंगे, हर बच्चे को एम्पावर्ड होना है, हर बच्चे को अच्छा सिटीजन बनना है हमारे कंट्री के लिए। किसी ने बताया हम घर घर गए, सभी को हेल्प किए, ये है जब बड़े होके आपको अच्छा सिटीजन बनना है, a better prepared citizen for the country. I'll stop it here. Thank you so much.
जब हम DRR के बारे में बात करते हैं ना, आइडियाज, प्लान्स, पॉलिसीज बहुत अच्छे हैं, बट DRR इज ऑल अबाउट डूइंग। वी नीड टू स्टार्ट डूइंग। एंड हम जो कर रहे हैं प्रोजेक्ट, हम सिर्फ हमारे प्रोजेक्ट के बारे में बात करेंगे, जहाँ पे हम 350 गाँव में, जिसमें 300 गाँव हैं और 50 अर्बन स्लम्स हैं। व्हाट वी आर डूइंग इज, आप लोगों ने, ये बच्चों ने यहाँ पे जो भी किया वो हम सब कर रहे हैं आप कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग के द्वारा, लेकिन हम उसमें क्या कर रहे हैं, हम उनको वो किट्स भी दे रहे हैं, सो दैट मेनी अ टाइम्स व्हाट हैपेंस इज यू गिव ट्रेनिंग बट यू डोंट गिव देम द इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर। नाउ दैट इज इनकम्प्लीट DRR एंड दैट्स अ डिजास्टर इन इटसेल्फ। तो हम हर स्कूल में आपदा से कैसे निपटना है या इमीडिएट रिस्पॉन्स के लिए जो चाहिए बेसिक, बिकॉज हम जानते हैं बच्चे हैं, ज़्यादा एक हद से ज़्यादा नहीं कर पाएंगे, लेकिन उनके ऊपर हमने 5 गाँव के बीच में एक पंचायत लेवल डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट टास्क फोर्स किट दिया हुआ है, विच इज़ वेरी एग्जॉस्टिव। ओके, नाउ जो स्कूल में होगा ना वो इमीडिएटली आप यूज़ कर सकते हो, तब तक बाहर से मदद आ जाएगी। ठीक है, इसके अलावा हम क्या कर रहे हैं कि हम हर स्कूल में एक डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट रिसोर्स सेंटर खड़ा कर रहे हैं, जिसमें एक कंप्यूटर है, LCD टीवी है, और हर कंप्यूटर एंड LCD टीवी हैज़ अ इंटरनेट कनेक्ट। ठीक है, और कोई भी आपदा के दौरान दिस सेंटर विल वर्क एज अ इमरजेंसी रिस्पॉन्स सेंटर, कोऑर्डिनेशन सेंटर। ठीक है ना, तो हम ये 350 गाँव में करने वाले हैं। एंड इसके अलावा हम क्या करेंगे, आपके पास कुछ आइडिया है क्या करना चाहिए? एनी आइडिया? नो आइडिया। मेरे को पता है आप लोग गालियाँ दे रहे हैं मनी मन में, ये कब बंद करेंगे? So this is what we are planning to do in the next 3 years. This is a 3 years long project, and हम hopefully आप लोग के सहयोगिता और भागीदारी से ये हम काम खत्म कर पाएंगे। With this, I would like to end my talk. Thanks, Dr. Thank you.
One thing I'd like to ask, you said this amazing work that's happening. If you could just shed a little more light about how to share the same platform with the parents, right? Because it's really important that whatever we do with the children, it has to go from the parents to the other institutions. So how do they negotiate with the state? What happens?
Now this project is being implemented in 5 states. Okay. Now what I talked about is school level disaster management resource center, because we are talking about comprehensive school safety. Now many a times if your school is safe, but your access to the school is not safe, then that's not comprehensive school safety. Okay. Now what we focus is, जब आप रिस्क असेसमेंट करते हैं तो आप स्कूल की 4 दीवारियों के बीच में आपके क्या रिस्क है, आपको वो तो देखना ही देखना है, लेकिन जब आप घर से निकल के स्कूल तक पहुंचते हैं, ठीक है, उस दौरान आप लोगों को क्या रिस्क है। बिकॉज हमने जब ये दिल्ली में रिस्क असेसमेंट किया था तो काफ़ी बच्चे रेलवे ट्रैक क्रॉस करके स्कूल आते हैं, ठीक है, there are a lot of children who cross the track and come to school, and that's the biggest risk. They have photos wherein they, whenever there is a train that is stopped, वो ट्रेन के नीचे से निकलते हैं, ठीक है, और काफी टाइम ट्रेन हॉर्न देती नहीं है निकलने से पहले. Okay, now one is school level disaster management resource center. Now we are also promoting children to go back home, talk to their parents, ठीक है, and have to and encourage them to have a family level resilience plan. Okay, at the panchayat level, at the village level, we are giving them a panchayat level and village level disaster management resource center. So school level पे हम intervene कर रहे हैं, village level पे intervene कर रहे हैं, and we are doing it at a panchayat level. Okay, now at the state level, the advocacy will take part. Will play its role as to what needs to be done. For example, as Save the Children, because we have funding, we cannot address all the problems that people face. But yes, we can always provide them with solutions. That's the reason we are coming up with risk reduction models. We will be having around 16 risk reduction models based on the risk that villagers have identified. कि इस गांव में हमको ये लगता है अगर हम इस पे काम करें, फॉर एग्जाम्पल ड्रिंकिंग वाटर, हैंडपम्प सबमर्ज हो जाते हैं बारिश में, तो अगर हम इसको रेज करें वेरी मिनिमल अमाउंट, वी विल रेज इट एंड वी विल डेमोन्स्ट्रेट इट टू द गवर्नमेंट. इट्स नॉट अ ह्यूज इन्वेस्टमेंट. So those are the risk reduction models that we are coming in. और की सवाल?
There are so many problems in each and every school, every government school, of course in private and corporate schools also. Today is the 20th. 20th is the Child Rights Day. Child Rights Day, morning to evening, they are striking of so many issues regarding the child protection. Regarding the child protection, it may come from the nature side, it may become the duty bearer side, it may become from the government side. Who are the responsible for all these issues? And the state is the government is the prime responsibility to solve, to identify, to solve each and everything. అంటే నేను తెలుగులో మాట్లాడతాం అంతసేపు సార్. ఎందుకంటున్నానంటే స్పందించి నేను మాట్లాడుతున్నాను. ఈరోజు పిల్లలు చిల్డ్రన్ మా ఏరియాలో ఒక యానాది ట్రైబల్ చిల్డ్రన్ ఎలక్ట్రిఫిషన్ అంటే మన మిడ్ డే మీల్స్ స్కీమ్లో ఆఫ్టర్ టేకింగ్ ది ఫుడ్ ఆయనంటే డ్రింకింగ్ వాటర్ చేయడానికి పోయి ఒక మరి ట్రైబల్ బాయ్ చనిపోయాడు టైం బికాస్ ఆఫ్ నెగ్లిజెన్స్. ఇట్ కమ్స్ అండర్ ది స్కూల్ సేఫ్టీ. మరి బికాస్ ఆఫ్ ద ట్రాఫిక్, బికాస్ ఆఫ్ ద రోడ్ సైడ్, corporate punishment, all these issues, child marriage issues, all these issues, and also in spite of all these issues, stress also there, suicides also there. And particularly, for instance, particularly in our Nellore district, 40 or 50 children used to die each and every year in the name of the swimming. అంటే ఈత కొట్టడం అనేటువంటి ఒక మా హ్యాబిట్లో నుంచి ఎవరైతే బిలో పావర్టీ లైన్లో ఉన్నారో, ఎస్సీ ఎస్టీ కమ్యూనిటీస్లో ఉన్నారు, రూరల్ పార్ట్స్లో ఈ పిల్లలు చనిపోతున్నారు. ఈ పిల్లలు చనిపోతుంటే నోబడీ బాదర్ అబౌట్ ద మ్యారేజ్ దోస్ క్వశ్చన్ అంటే ఏంది ఇట్ ఇండికేట్స్ దిస్ సార్.
That's a very important point. In our project, we are also focusing on child-sensitive social protection.
Yes.
Now, there are a lot of schemes for children. There are schemes for orphan children, there are schemes for nutrition, malnourished children. So, under the project, we are also trying to develop software so that children are made aware. Children and the family, when I say children, it includes their families as well. So, they are made aware as to ऐसी कौन-कौन सी schemes हैं जो उन पे लागू पड़ती है. ठीक है, एक बच्चा स्कूल नहीं आता, ठीक है, तो वो तो आपके वल्नरेबिलिटी के इसमें चला ही जाता है. जब हम स्कूल सेफ्टी के बारे में बात करते हैं तो so what we want is that for the child who is not going to school gets access to the scheme that is entitled for. He goes to the school and then the comprehensive school safety is complete.
Sir, and more than discrimination is there. And discrimination in the name of the caste and also in the name of the language medium. The so-called English medium, it ridicules, it creates the one type of inferiority. ఎందుకంటున్నానంటే ఈరోజు తెలుగు మాట్లాడే లేదా తమిళ్ మాట్లాడే హిందీ మాట్లాడే పిల్లలు దోస్ హూ నోస్ ది ఇంగ్లీష్ వాళ్ళు ఏదో సూపర్ఫిషియల్ అనుకుంటున్నారు. అంటే ఆ పిల్లల్లో ఉండేటువంటి క్రియేటివ్నెస్ అనేది డల్ అవుతుంది, కిల్ అవుతుంది. ఈ రకమైనటువంటి సిచ్యువేషన్లో వాట్ ఈస్ ద solution for all these things. Ante in India there is the dual education policy here, and also at the same time government education system is there, and at the same time corporate education system is there. So many issues.
I completely agree with it. In our country, there's a lot of things that needs to be advocated for. If school safety is something that we need to, let us start. Let us begin. Let us take the first step, and let's be optimistic. There will be problems. There are going to be problems. So, okay, then we just have to come over it and win over it. Yeah. With this, I'll thank you all. It has been a wonderful interaction.
ప్రతి సంవత్సరం వరదలు తుఫాన్లు వచ్చే అవకాశం ఉంది. అందువలన యాక్షన్ సంస్థ టీం వచ్చి మాకు శిక్షణలు చాలా ఇచ్చారు. ఆ శిక్షణలు తీసుకుని మేము మా స్కూల్ పటాన్ని గీసి మీ ముందు వివరించబోతున్నాం.
ఇది మా స్కూల్ పక్కన చెరువు ఉంది. ఇటు సైడ్ కూడా చెరువు ఉంది. మా స్కూల్ వెనకాల గోదావరి పాయ వెళ్తుంది. మా స్కూల్ ముందర చెరువు ఉంది. మా స్కూల్కి గోదావరి పాయకి మధ్యలో తుప్పలు ఉన్నాయి. తుప్పల్లో పాములు ఉండే అవకాశం ఉంది. ఆ పాములు మేము ఆట స్థలంలోకి వచ్చే అవకాశం ఉంది.
ఇది మా స్కూల్ పటము. మేము ఆడుకునే స్థలంలో ముందుగా చెరువు ఉన్నది. ఈ చెరువులో జారిపడే అవకాశం చాలా ఎక్కువగా ఉన్నది. ఇందులో పడిన తర్వాత పడితే కనుక వాళ్ళని బయటికి తీసి ప్రథమ చికిత్స చేయగలము.
ఇది మా రోడ్. మేము రోడ్డు మీద ప్రయాణించినప్పుడు రోడ్ యాక్సిడెంట్స్ జరిగే అవకాశం ఉంది.
ఇది మా స్కూల్ వెనకాల ఓఎన్జీసీ రిగ్గు ఉంది. రిగ్గు లీక్ అయ్యేటప్పుడు మా స్కూల్ సౌండ్లకి పాఠాలు వినలేకపోతున్నాం. వేడికి గట్రా స్కూల్లో ఉండలేకపోతున్నాం. మా స్కూల్ సాధారణ ప్రమాదాలు జరిగేటప్పుడు మేము చాలా సంసిద్ధులుగా ఉంటాం.
చిత్రపటము. ఇది మా స్కూల్ దగ్గర ఎక్కువగా వరదలు తుఫాన్లు వచ్చే అవకాశం ఉంది. వరదలు తుఫాన్లు వచ్చినప్పుడు మా స్కూల్ మొత్తం మునిగిపోయే అవకాశం ఉంది. అప్పుడు మేము ఇలా ఈ దారిలో ఇక్కడ ఉన్న గ్రామ పంచాయతీ దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళి ఉంటాం.
ఇది మా స్కూల్ వెనకాల ఓఎన్జీసీ ఆలివిక్ ఉంది. ఇది రిగ్గింగ్ అయినప్పుడు శబ్దం వస్తుంది. అది వినడానికి ఇబ్బందికరంగా ఉంటుంది. అగ్ని ప్రమాదం జరిగే అవకాశం ఉంది. అగ్ని ప్రమాదం వేళ జరిగితే మాకు సురక్షితమైన ప్రదేశం మా గ్రామ పంచాయతీ.
ఈ అవకాశం ఇచ్చిన పెద్దలందరికీ నమస్కారం. మేము మా గ్రామంలో సేవ్ ద చిల్డ్రన్ డిఆర్ఆర్ ప్రాజెక్ట్ వచ్చిన తర్వాత అత్యవసర గ్రామ ప్రణాళిక ద్వారా 5 దళాలను ఏర్పాటు చేసుకొని గ్రామంలో ఎప్పుడైనా తుఫాన్లు, సునామీలు, వరదలు వచ్చే ముందు హెచ్చరిక దళం అనేది ముందుగా గ్రామంలో హెచ్చరిక చేస్తుంది. ఆ హెచ్చరిక దళం చేసే పనులని మా పిల్లలు చేసి చూపిస్తారు.
వికలాంగులు, గర్భవతులు, చిన్నపిల్లలు మరియు ముసలి వాళ్ళు తుఫాను
amount of information and the diversity and magnitude of disasters that happen. And therefore, Gregory Button, who is an anthropologist, he studies disasters to say that these calamities are suffused with uncertainty because of the incomplete and typically conflicting information about the nature and extent of risk. And in the aftermath of disaster, he argues that uncertainty does not simply exist, it is also manufactured. So therefore, disaster responders like media agencies, environmental concern groups, public agencies and others will release a cacophony of information, which the population might see as conflicting and confusing. So therefore, this informational uncertainty becomes, forms a sort of individual and community-wide stress due to the lack of effective coordination between responding organizations. So therefore, Button argues that the production of this uncertainty due to disaster can result in new political, economic and social formations. Now, when he sees that with reference to scientific uncertainty, say for particular examples of a nuclear disaster or say building of dams and other concerns, what we find is that science is very rigorous in its methodology, and while the media seeks immediate answers to meet daily deadlines and the public demands instant answers, science, by virtue of its methodologically rigorous approach, cannot readily respond to these demands. Moreover, some uncertainties cannot be avoided or addressed because sufficient scientific information does not exist. Further, scientists have said that the absolute certainty is almost never attainable in science, and therefore, in a limited time frame to respond to complex socio-ecological emergencies and the dynamics of this disaster, it becomes difficult. This is the very point where corporate interests will want to avoid litigation, they will want to avoid future losses and liability, and therefore they will call for better sciences. Terms such as junk science, this is irrational, or this is very emotional, are narratives which are found when they call for such better sciences. And therefore, in order to avoid public scrutiny, the government and scientists may sometimes act in collusion with these interests. And using this scientific uncertainty, official narratives can also be undermined. And that means that the event is then limited in its scope and the order to prevent further government interference. So therefore, to avoid any form of government liability also, it can be projected as scientific uncertainty and the people's concerns are lost. Now, he says that, Button, who studied this whole phenomenology in various disasters over the last 20 years, he says that this whole process then does not lessen uncertainty, but rather it increases its production. So therefore, citizen science in itself is further suppressed and the powerful elite will co-opt the scientific process. And here, because of this process, the law and regulating agencies cannot do anything. So this means that uncertainty is not just endemic in science, but it is in all realms of our life, and which is why it is increasingly used as a tactic to further uncertainty and cause further disasters. So I will now discuss about knowledge control mechanisms, whereby public relations skills, the paid media and others can be used to reassure and downplay disaster, or it can be a political strategy and which can contribute to the climate of amplified uncertainty. This means that a disaster is political as much as it is natural or man-made. And therefore, uncertainty becomes the instrument to garner public opinion either for or against a particular interest group. It could be people, it could be the environment, it could be the politician, the corporate, or anyone. So this conscious tendency to manufacture, devise, or withhold knowledge politicize the discourse in the wake of our disasters. And therefore, the media can influence how we see the world, or at least what we see. And this brings information uncertainty to our homes. And what it does not bring is who is creating this. And therefore, Button and others argue that in a disaster analysis, we must examine power relations among the various agencies and the institutions involved in the event and the people affected by this disaster. Now, a lot of studies came from the Hurricane Katrina, and the role of media was particularly emphasized in how the issues came up. And the media studies from American universities have shown that there is a re-emergence of mythological beliefs after 9/11. And it could be seen in people going more to church, or it could be people avoiding built-up areas and other such concerns which came up after 9/11. And the media promoted this idea that there is a lot of panic and there is looting, and this was particularly popularized. Whereas in reality, on the ground, there was a larger sense of calm. So the biggest problematic issue which resulted from this was that these incorrect assumptions led to misallocation of resources. So where they brought in the National Guard to actually protect certain properties, it could have been used to give better aid or development to people, particularly women and children, the old aged and the disabled. So another aspect which showed that disaster had color was when African Americans were consistently described as looting goods, while the same activities done by white Americans were shown as finding supplies. So at the macro level analysis of this disaster, it was shown that media treatments of disaster both reflect and reinforce our broader societal and cultural trends, the socially constructed meta-narratives and hegemonic discourse practices that support the status quo, and the interests of our elites. Thus, the myths concerning the panicky public, the dangers presented by looters, and the threat disaster victims posed to the social order serve to justify policy stances adopted by law enforcement agencies and other institutions concerned with social control. The consequences of these myths are then that both media reporting and the official discourse following Katrina upheld the mythical notion of lawlessness and social breakdown which follows a disaster. Yet, the media also helped people reunite. It provided information and other details, although some was distorted or maybe just mere oversimplifications. And in the aftermath of all this reporting and all the management methods that were used, and the media frenzy died down, the journalists themselves were among the harshest critics of Katrina's reporting. They found that, on the national news, they actually admitted that the promotion of these myths were actually wrong. Sure. So they actually agreed to the fact that these myths were wrong and contributed to the mismanagement of the disaster. So therefore, understanding from all these problems, we understand that there is a need for collaboration amongst media agencies and governments and all other response agencies. Therefore, nobody can act independently. Secondly, when media becomes the sole source of information, the existing disaster management system gets compromised, absolutely. And even scientists and bureaucrats will then turn to the media for all sorts of information, which is I've highlighted in my paper. And this mere excess of information is the reason why media becomes a key response agency in all disasters, and therefore catering for media relations is indispensable. So scholars have argued that in pre-disaster management plans we must include the media and practices, and therefore in my entire paper I have then come down to say that the media must train together, it must work with the people right from the time planning is done, and once the planning phase is over, they must practice the disaster management plan. Lessons learned must be available